Good evening, and welcome to the Americas Society. Tonight is a very special night, and on behalf of Gabriela Rangel, who runs our visual arts program and is the curator of our gallery, we want to welcome you all here this evening. This is our first Cultural Achievement Award dinner, and that's a very special thing for us. Cultural at the Americas Society dates back to its founding by David Rockefeller, and it is very important that we build upon the heritage, we continue to promote culture, and this Cultural Achievement Award dinner is one of the ways that we can highlight what we do on the cultural side and how important cultural is. So we are so pleased that so many of you could come this evening as we confer the Americas Society Cultural Achievement Award on Gabriel Orozco. Before we begin, I would like to welcome our special guests and dignitaries in the audience this evening. Of course, I want to start with Gabriel Orozco and his wonderful wife, Maria Gutierrez. Thank you for joining us. And then I want to welcome my dear friend, Ambassador Sandra Fuentes, Consul General of Mexico here in New York. Thank you for joining us. And Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee, who will have a conversation with Gabriela following the presentation of his award. Welcome. And I want to give a very special thanks to Philips for their sponsorship of this evening's event. And I'd like to welcome their chairman and CEO, Edward Dolman, as well as August Uribe, worldwide co-head of contemporary art, and Laura Gonzalez, director of Latin American art. Thank you so much. And I also want to thank Thomas Preddy for their generous donation of the delicious dinner we will be enjoying this evening, and their excellent servers. And I would like to thank Fournier Wines. Their owner could not join us tonight, for their magnificent wines that were shipped from Argentina. And I'd like to thank also Casa Dragones Tequila, which has donated the tequila, which will be served with dessert. So we're very excited about this. And I want to thank Ariel Rojo, the designer of this gorgeous award, which will be given to Gabrielle shortly. And finally, I want to thank our friends, our members, our benefactors for joining us this evening for this wonderful evening, as well as some new friends, so glad, joining us for the first time. Thank you all for your support, and I want to give you an enormous hand. So, as the Americas Society prepares to celebrate the 50th anniversary of our organizations in 2015, we created this Cultural Achievement Award as a way, as I said at the beginning, of reaffirming our long-standing commitment to highlighting and supporting culture in the Western Hemisphere. This award will recognize extraordinary creativity and artistic mastery among hemispheric, particularly Latin American, cultural figures. And Gabriel Orozco is the perfect artist with whom to inaugurate this very important award. Gabriel is truly a unique and outstanding artist who is constantly challenging us to reevaluate our idea of what art is. He is recognized as one of the most significant, bold, and experimental artists today, occupying a central role not only in Latin American art, but also in international contemporary art. His career commenced in Mexico in the mid-'80s, and in 1992, he moved to New York City, where a year later, he had his first solo museum show at MoMA. Over the last 3 decades, he has created an amazing portfolio of work through a diverse range of media, including photography, sculpture, video, installations, drawings, and found objects, rejecting traditional studio work in favor of the use of urban landscapes as a platform for his practice. Gabriel explores themes of space, time, movement, poetic encounters, and games. MoMA director Glenn Lowry has described his work as variously cerebral and spontaneous, convivial, and hushed, the result of painstaking planning and fortuitous accident. His art has been showcased in galleries, museums, and collections across the world, including MoMA and the Guggenheim here in New York, the Tate Modern and the Serpentine Gallery in London, the Reina Sofia in Madrid, the Rufino Tamayo in Mexico City, and the Pompidou in Paris, just among others. And of course, the owners of the 2 most important galleries in our hemisphere, both of whom represent Gabriel, Marian Goodman and Cordy Mazzuto, are here with us tonight, and thank you both for being here and giving us your support. Gabriel has also participated in Documenta Casal in Germany, the Venice Biennial in Italy, the Whitney Biennial in New York, as well as numerous other international shows. And his profound influence on generations of artists in Latin America and around the globe ensures that his enormous legacy will live on both through his physical work and beyond. And I must also say he is an amazing ambassador for Mexico. So tonight, it is our great honor to recognize Gabriel with the 2014 America's Society Cultural Achievement Award. And as I said at the beginning, I can think of no one more worthy of this, and what a wonderful figure to inaugurate our Cultural Achievement Award. Gabriel, please come.
Someone in the 18th century, whose name I don't remember, suggested that awards in art are the keys of death. Nonetheless, a prominent critic refuted the idea when he stated persistently that Gabriel Orozco's work envisages a singular history for the writing of 20th century sculpture. Therefore, we all agree that he merits receiving this award. Well, he's still young, I think. Indeed, over the years, Orozco's portfolio has grown in complexity, often going back and forth between materials, techniques, and motifs. His practice is very receptive, existing in constant dialogue with the history of sculpture as well as our current cultural conventions and modes of production. Here, the word dialogue is very important because it is by virtue of being dialogical that Orozco pieces are able to gain this complexity. Very much in tune with what has written about Duchamp in the 90s, and I quote, "The aim is neither an abstract negation of art nor a romantic reconciliation with life, but a perpetual testing of the conventions of both." The idea of practice as a perpetual testing had enabled Orozco to develop a fairly egalitarian relationship between different modes, instruments, and relations of production. Pieces like the working tables, with their accumulations of found objects, sketches, ideas, and unfinished works, reminds us of this. We find ourselves against a surface where a found object is as important as a crafted sketch, and an idea is as unimportant as an unfinished work. Orozco has found his way to practice that is somewhere between the artisanal and the industrial, the found and the made, the original and the reproduction. He takes the flow as it were of our relationships, of process, of production, as one that has a life of its own. And his role as an artist is that of a mediator, and I will go back. When walking into a sculpture exhibit, we expect to urge to be fulfilled by objects presented in an unfamiliar fashion. Orozco makes us walk into an empty room and realize that the room is a space of imagination and creativity. He demands from us to look out of the window. And then we find nothing more than a set of oranges in the neighboring apartments' windows. We find ourselves enacting the impossible game as our experience, as well as his, is now mediated beyond the prevailing rules of organization. Nonetheless, this award attests to Gabriel Orozco's greatest achievement, on my view, which is the use of space as an unsung music of poetry, as some Mexican writer wrote a long time ago. I will leave you now with this last sentence with an accomplished interlocutor, a thinker, and a scientist, Dr. Siddhartha Mukherjee, and I hope that I'm pronouncing well his last name, who has proven that awards are not the keys of death, but quite the opposite. Thank you so much.
Very nice. Thank you. It's a nice tridimensional way of all the continent, the American continent. Thank you. Gabriela, well, Susan, thank you very much. Gabriela, what an idea. I feel like I'm in a movie in New York or something. I'm part of the movie, actually. So really, thank you. This is a very special, like, dream-like situation, the dinner, the words. I normally don't think so much in what I have done because it makes me a little dizzy. I'm 52, and sometimes I feel like I am 75. But I remember when people told me, "Oh, you are very young. I thought you were 50 when I was 30." So it's very confusing for me. And obviously, this I'm very honored for this recognition, and obviously, I think that it's nice to feel that there is kind of a big teamwork trying to put things together to make culture work all around the world and find connections with many people that there is maybe no other way to find connection. So art has this kind of, is this kind of instrument that we use to make politics and to create awareness about things, and it's not, in fact, even expensive to make. We know it's very expensive to actually have it in your house, but the way it circulates in the work is not expensive. It's just a matter of goodwill and sensitivity and hard work, of course. And I think that American Society here, and Susan and Gabriela, and every little effort that this city makes for culture that circulates and generates better humans in everybody is a way of recognizing that we are having fun. And I'm very, very honored to have received this prize. So I better sit, and thank you. Thank you very much. And now we talk, right? Yeah. Thank you.
Well, Gabriel, first of all, congratulations on a great honor. I thought I would begin with a quote and an idea. before we show some slides. And the quote comes from no less than T.S. Eliot himself, who once said that it's important to know the rhyme of a poem before you know the meaning of a poem. And I have often thought about your work. I've known your work for many years, and often thought about your work that before I understand the meaning of the work, I should understand the rhyme of the work. What is the rhyme in the work? And that's an idea I'd like to explore a little bit today. And now, as I said, let me create a setting which perhaps is helpful. So rather than New York and a lovely dinner with wine, maybe we can move to Roca and sit not in this place, but a place which is where the sky is open and you can watch whales. I'm not saying anyone is a whale, but sit in a place, and you and I can have a conversation as if that is the environment, because this is a place that we have had some of my most memorable and most important conversations that have influenced my work in very, very deep ways. And so given in that setting, I would like to maybe start showing some of the slides. And let me set up the slides by referring to three ideas, and this is going to be the substance of the conversation. Yeah. Set up the slides by referring to three ideas which are very important. One is the idea of yantra, or instrument, machines, mechanisms. The second is the idea of mandala, or drawings which can become hypnotic objects, meditative objects, cosmogonic drawings, cosmological drawings, anatomical drawings, references to objects, references to model building abstractions. And finally, kapala, or ritual objects, which fulfill the function of creating objects or spaces which allow you to meditate on abstractions. So with that in mind, maybe I would start showing the slides, and then we can have the conversation. Does that sound like a reasonable idea? Very good. Okay. So here are some slides. Gabriel and I met last week, and I just sent him some slides, and I asked him to respond to those slides as if we were having a conversation, but instead of having a conversation, this is a visual conversation. So instead, I sent him a set of slides. He responded back with a set of slides, and we just said, let's put them together. It's totally spontaneous, but of course, in many ways, very premeditated. So this is a Jain anatomical drawing from the 13th or 14th century.
And this is one of my works.
Another Jain drawing, this actually predates it. This is a 7th century drawing of a human being in a cosmological universe, and importantly a digestive system, something that I'm very interested in, particularly given the circumstances. Another drawing from Gabriel's, not last show, but 2 shows before this. You want to talk 2 seconds about this, Gabriel?
Yes, sure. The one before, maybe you can go.
Yeah, go back. Yeah.
This one is called coordinates, and it's a human body, but it's just based on points. The idea of a center point in the body, and then circulation, and a kind of diagrammatic of the body in motion, and somehow, obviously, I mean, one of the reasons we decided to have this conversation is because Indian art has been important in my work. Since 20 years, I kind of traveling to India and knowing all these diagrams and all these mandalas and the yantras has been important in my work. So we have been in an ongoing conversation, and Roca is the house that we are going to show here, that is based on an observatory in India, and that we spend time there, and we have had many conversations. So obviously the representation of the body, but the mapping of the body, the anatomical study of the body can be done in many, many ways. Of course, we have one way that we know from Leonardo da Vinci on, the kind of very precise study in terms of scientific anatomy. But it's interesting how in Indian art also there is this type of intention of mapping the energies of the body, or the potentiality of the body as a space in expansion, as the universe works. The universe as from a possible center that is in constant expansion. So the body in Indian culture, I found this very interesting, and you will tell me more about it, is this notion of the body as the representation of the universe. So we are everybody, every single body is a universe and behaves like a universe. So then this possible representation of the body as a coordinate, as a kind of different centers of the body that is in constant movement. The second drawing, the other one, is a map that is a folding paper, is my height, and then I was traveling with this as a kind of ongoing map. So I was traveling, I put it in my luggage, open it up, make drawings, draw something, and then fold it back. So it was a kind of ongoing map of a kind of existential document that I was just building and drawing on my traveling. Obviously it's very organic, but at the same time has symmetry, has accident, almost like body fluids, which are also very important in the representation of the body as a machine of energy.
Just one comment I think which is very important, and we talked about this a little bit before. I'm very interested, have been long interested in these folds. You will see, of course, that in this Jain map, there are also folds. And that is because, of course, these were carried, often folded, and carried across places and used as instruments.
By the doctors?
By doctors, and used as instruments to, and so they were used in as not only meditations, but used as anatomical instruments to remind yourself what the diagrammatic structures were, so that you could come back to them. And of course, that's why they were folded. The folds are really in function of their function. Right. And going back to this drawing, of course, and its relationship with these from 7th to 8th century drawings, is that, of course, unlike Da Vinci's anatomical drawings, these are representations, but they're simultaneous abstractions, which is to say that there's a claim or a hypothesis made by this drawing, which is also made by this drawing, that the important thing is not the way your bones are structured or the way your head looks, but the important things are the loci of energy or movements, and therefore you should ignore everything else. But really it is about, one Jain physician might say, it's really about circles and circularity. So therefore all the chakras, all the several circles are the important, everything else is a distraction. And we'll come back to this idea that you can have an anatomical drawing which is a representation of something real, but is simultaneously an abstraction. So the next one, yeah, this is once again flipping backwards to one such anatomical drawing. This is a drawing of bones, as you can see, and it is making the claim here, which you can see, the rest is abstraction, the rest is irrelevant. We should focus on these particular bones, and then Gabriel, tell us about this piece, which is twin.
And here there is also the idea of the platform. So the paper as a platform, is a paper that you have in a table, and that you have an action on top of the paper. In this case, my feet, my hands, the surface of the paper as a receptacle, as a recipient, which is also important, because at the end the body is also a recipient. The body performs in platforms. The table is a platform, the chair, the floor. So the folding unfolding was also a kind of a tridimensional gesture of flatness and bidimensionality and diagram, and then the folding and the mapping is making this double gesture. That is very important in my work in general. I have always this with the cutting of the car, with the drawings of grids on organic forms, and we can see later in the in the paintings to this unfolding of bidimensionality and tridimensionality. And so it's a map of moments, and then the whole thing becomes one representation of the leftovers of a body, or the stains of the turbulence of a body in action.
I like that there were stains of turbulence. When you unfolded these in wherever you were working, did you unfold them in particular ways? Was there a ritual in unfolding them? Was that gesture or the action part of the drawing, or did you unfold them in ways that were different in different places? I mean, did you fold them the same way?
Well, I try, but you know, that's impossible. It's like when you have a map and you try to fold it in the same way, it's as difficult as trying to put a stereo system that you buy and then you put it back in the box, and it's very, very hard to do that. But yes, the folding, and sometimes I painted half folded, so you have like small sections. So also the idea of fragmentation of the whole, and then concentration in one surface. And then sometimes I also draw on the back of the paper. So there was moments that I was working in the back. So I show them, in fact, both sides sometimes. Right. So in this case, this is just one view. But
I showed recently Gabriel a tanka or a mandala, which I had just recently purchased, and many of you might know that in the back of the tanka or the mandala, the signature is created by dipping your hands in red ink and placing him like this on the back of the tanka, which is the most visceral signature you can have, and itself, of course, creates an object in the back, which is a secret object. No one can see it.
Right.
And I was reminded, because you were working in these ways, of course, your prints and your fingerprints and your pieces of your body were falling into the drawings as they were moving along. This second series of objects refers to, in the first series we talked about cosmologic, anatomic, cosmogonic drawings. The second series of objects refers to what is traditionally known as kapala. People who know Gabriel's work will immediately understand the relevance of all of this, but these, of course, are ritual skulls, human skulls, which are used, which are decorated, and then often used to drink from, either milk or milk mixed with blood, cow blood, or used in ritual objects, but really are used as transformative lodestones. So when you hold one, the point is that you're holding the fluid that is in your body, but also fluid that's in part of the universe, right? So the idea that ultimately your skull happens to have the shape of a cup is very central to this. This is one from, we think, 10th, 11th century. And what's beautiful about it, of course, is that it's not only decorated on the outside with beaten silver, but with inside also with the embossment and embossed silver. And this is another one of them. This is another kapala. Hard to date this one, but you can see here, of course, etched over with a skeleton. So a skeleton inside a skeleton, as it were. And then onwards to this piece. Gabriel, tell us about.
Well, I tried to place a grid, bidimensional grid on a very complex organic shape. Then the negative and positive was obstructing the view, but then revealing the fragmented views at the same time. Then when it was circulating going to the back, first I started in the front, and symmetry, the eyes, and then going to the back became more abstract, more like a homogeneous grid. So I think that over the time spending doing this was very much an exercise on how our ideas of geometrical ideas, or the idea of some schematic views of what we have in the brain is sometimes what we have already in the brain is a kind of a schematic, and then when confronted with reality, you break those diagrams when all the time what is happening in front of you. So that is the top, which I mean, it's so different from the other one you show.
That's right.
Exactly what? You don't even know what it is anymore.
That's right. So the object becomes, so here, of course, on one hand, this is a skeleton, as it were, but here, for instance, it's fascinating that the sutures become their own. The sutures, you cannot. It is an incredibly visceral idea that you're drinking from a cup, while the sutures themselves are crisscrossing your hand, the sutures of the brain and the skull. Whereas in this work, of course, now it becomes very different. The globe, an abstraction, something that is that lies outside, I find particularly intriguing, very beautiful also, this convergence here, how ultimately this part of your body, which becomes so narrow, where you hold your hand, becomes the circle, where everything comes together again.
It's like centrifugal point.
Yeah, it's
somehow.
centrifugal.
So it starts from the symmetry, and then all the eye is very complex, goes into more minimal state, and then collapses into a kind of centrifugal point, which is or something that almost we can feel when we walk, or even when we think, or how we have the back of our head is a very important contact of the whole column and the body with this receptacle again. With this almost like a bowl, with a substance that is liquid and solid, and it's all our ideas are there.
And it remains a mystery of neuroanatomy and optics. Why, although our eyes are up here, our visual cortex is back here. No one knows, and no one will know probably why that happened. Why it is that for whatever reason we send the images that impinge upon our eye backwards to a place quite far away, through two nerves that cross each other and then create the sensation, the most important sensation that we have as humans, bar none. I don't think anyone doubt or will challenge the idea that vision is the most important sensation we have as humans.
Well, Borges challenged that. Borges is not that much. No, actually, the ears it probably is more is more isolating, at least.
Yes.
And I think probably it's in the back. That's my theory. I have a new theory. I think it's in the back because what you see has to go through the ears and then to the back.
Right.
So you actually hear what you are looking at. Makes sense, no?
And yet
you don't understand. You don't understand what you just see what you understand.
Right.
And then they I suppose there is so many things when you are what you see goes into the whole brain until it gets at the very end in the back. Then you forget, I guess, what you see. But let's keep going.
And so now on to these incredible instruments of meditation, of thought, mandalas. These are, of course, geometrical drawings based very much on conceptions of cosmos, or in some cases of anatomy. We're keeping on the same theme over and over again. These are geometrical drawings, but most importantly, it's very crucial, and this we come back to the central idea, these are not to be seen as abstractions in the formal sense. They're to be seen as functional objects or as instruments. These are instruments of meditation that allow you to reach a place that you would normally not otherwise reach, or they're representations of certain distributions of the geometries of the universe, that's such that if you sat in front of one, you would therefore be able to get a window. They're really windows or portals that you would allow you to transport yourself to a place that is functionally different. So they're meditation objects, often also carried, you can see here some folds as well, often also carried, folded up, opened up in wherever you're going to be, and then therefore you could then now, wherever you are, you have a window into the cosmos.
No, but what I find interesting is that obviously I don't believe you have a window into the cosmos, but it's a nice idea. But what is nice is that you are emptying your mind. So it's an instrument that through the eyes and the circulation of precisely that eyes that are getting all this into your back, that looks like that. And then you, in that centrifugal looking at and concentration, you are emptying yourself, and you are creating a void. And then you are again open to whatever happens. So it's a way of enlightenment through a drawing that it works as an instrument of concentration, meditation. That again, you get you lose your ego in English, ego in Spanish, and you are again kind of empty to receive whatever happens.
Yeah. What is interesting about
which is the cosmos, I suppose.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that's interesting, of course, about these is that they're, as drawings, you would imagine that if they were working at, naively, you would imagine that they were emptying instruments, that they would be empty themselves. But in fact, they're highly populated.
Right.
They're full of objects, maps, places, particular vicinities, etc. And this, of course, leads into the most recent pieces that you have recently at the gallery, which also have this quality that they are simultaneously places that you can empty, but in fact are lineologically, in terms of space, very busy, very full, very complete.
Well, also that in this case they are start from a blackness, the black of the graphite, total blackness, total space of nothing, and then the incision on the canvas trying to make quadrants from the center, always from the center. So in a way it's created as a kind of mandala. From the center is a square. You start always in a circulation from the center point, and incision into the blackness, bringing back the background, which is quite gesso, and then erasing the center, and then reworking with light and graphite the emptiness that generates. So for me it has been important the generating that emptiness in the center, and then that is time, the generation of time somehow, or creating time through the drawing of in the surface. And in the looking at the process, that is all relevant. I mean, it's all evident in the piece. You recreate that time, a time of creation,
right? From
nothingness to nothingness, maybe, but it's all a cycle. And if you see maybe in the next one, this also reminds me a little bit like the cosmological drawings of India and the tantric, that are also circles, an intersection of circles, and how the universe is just all these bubbles floating.
And how did you know when this drawing was completed?
Well, when there is a sense of a whole, like the whole thing just is completed somehow. That is not, that is still circulating, is still open, is still in movement. So that means you didn't kill the drawing, because it's very possible that you can kill a drawing. But then you feel that it's all together and keeps moving. It's very strange. It's very hard to tell.
When I first saw these drawings, of course, when they were in their earliest form, when we were in Roca in their very first version, and they're spectacular, in the gallery. And instantly we were talking, actually, back then, about these being instrumental. These are, in Harry Potter, there's a that famous.
Just to talk about real science.
Harry Potter is real science to me. There's this great object called a pensieve, which is a lovely word. A pensieve is where you go to empty your mind. And the Dumbledore has one. The principal has one. And the idea pensieve is a very beautiful idea, because it takes, of course, sieve and pense, and combines them, because she's so good with words. But I often, when I was sitting in Roca Blanca, I often thought of these as Roca Blanca pensieves. You could come into them, you could empty your your mind, and then you would come back somehow or the other on the other side, whether it was to see the cosmos or the body or some object like that.
That's nice. And we are getting very close to Roca Blanca, so hurry up.
Yes.
Then we have some dinner.
So this last series are really where the conversation really comes to, which is about instruments as, the first time I saw your work, one of the things that I was often reminded about is that, if you were a Martian, you would land up and you would think, I'm not sure what the function of this work is, but every piece of work seemed to have a function. I said to you this about Roca Blanca. In Roca Blanca, when you land up in the house that you've designed, every person you feel all through the day as if you have a function. It's not a great holiday place because you feel as if somehow or the other you're simultaneously emptying your mind but also receiving something. So it's a very complex process. But just to start us off, this is a observatory that was built in 1724 in India. There are actually two of them. One of them is in Jaipur and one of them is in Delhi. Although
there is a small version a small one in Varanasi too.
That's exactly right. You know more about, Gabriel knows more about India than I do, so I often.
I'm telling you.
So these are obviously each one of these is a yantra or an instrument. The colloquial name is jantar mantar, which is really a colloquial name, but really it stands for an instrument. And each one of them is a cosmological instrument. They function as cosmological instruments. This, which you don't see with this little kid standing up here, this staircase, this stairway to nowhere, is really aligned exactly at the axis of the Earth. So this is 66.5 degrees. So that's the ordinal axis of the Earth compared to the sun. That's how the Earth moves at that corner. But that's why you can't see that.
But also, I think it's important to say also that at that point there were no telescopes. So I mean, it's important. They were made as big instruments, so architectural instruments, so you can go walk and use them to measure the stars, to watch how they behave. So for example, the two halves, the two spheres, the two half spheres are the two sides of the heavens. So it is like a sphere cut in two.
Or a skull.
Like a skull, exactly. So those are, then you go inside and through those spheres you can watch and measure the stars and the movements of the heavens. So there you walk and in different positions you can see before there were telescopes. So.
And this, of course, you can now first of all see that ordinal axis. This is Earth art before Earth art, literally. And so that's the ordinal axis, and this is a giant sundial which you can use then steps to climb into so that you can then figure out where you are in time. And this is one of the we call it the stripe walk, but really is a series of axes that turn around towards the entire Earth. So you could map yourself where you were in terms of geographical map of the Earth has been put on this one. So now we go into these drawings. Gabriel, tell us about these drawings.
Well,
tell us about the process of conception.
Then I was traveling in India in '96. We were in the observatory. We were fascinated by them, and then I just have this stupid idea that one of these sundials, one of these little constructions, could be amazing as an observatory in somewhere else. At the beginning, I thought that in the Mayan area, that in the Mayan peninsula, you have all this flatness, and we have observatories also, obviously from the Mayans. But then I thought how amazing idea that architectural instrument as a platform of observation, how we could reproduce that or something. And then I have this even more kind of naive idea that the sphere should be filled with water, so you could be just having this sense of space through water and watching the stars from this container of water.
So rather than the ordinal universe coming into the bowl, you just fill the bowl with water. This is a very Indian idea because there are floods in India all the time. So if you make a hole in India, it'll soon be full of water.
No, but also, you know, the pond, as you very well know, the center of the universe is the pond. Is the pond with water, which is the center of life. and all the temples are built up around a pond of water. So in this case, this is the first drawing. I mean, first I took measurements of the Tantra Jantra, whatever is the name of this particular one, I forgot. And then took measurements. Maria and I, we were together taking measurements of all the steps, everything.
Maria, what did you measure?
The stairs. Easy. And I have my notes with every single, so then just to, to have it in memory. Obviously, we didn't have access to any plans of these things. So then I have this idea. I made many drawings, and then at the end, I found a piece of land in the coast of Mexico in the Pacific Ocean, and I decided to build it after 10 years. So, yeah, that one.
So these, of course, are exactly the steps, and this is the pool on the roof. It conforms to all American safety codes.
Well, okay, first, it's not very big. The house is really 16 meters by 16 meters. It looks kind of big in the photographs because there is no one there, but in fact, there are just 3 rooms, quite small, 1 kitchen, and then the swimming pool in the center that when you are downstairs, you don't see. Also has these terraces, so at the end it's a house that, yeah, one of the things, I mean, it works, it's not uncomfortable, but it's simple in a way, and also you have a sense of circulation, constant movement, and then the house disappears constantly. You are always in a moment that you have the house in your back, but you are watching the landscape. So there is something kind of interesting that this is still an observatory place. It's a place that you, when you are in there, you are watching a complete view of the surroundings.
And that's an amazing, the experience of being in the house is the experience of being an eye, an oculus, but it's of course an inverted oculus, but it's an observatory because you land up over here from the morning, and the sun of course moves now across from this end and over to this end, and you're really observing. You're in the heavens with the reflection of the heavens in the bowl underneath you, in the inverted bowl of the pond. This is how the house sits on the rocks itself, and maybe that is the last of the.
But we can go back just quickly to the just to the drawing. Well, that one is maybe to the last image. We can just a conclusion. It's like interesting. The skull is graphite on bones. This is a graphite on gesso. The house looks like let's put together things quickly before we go to the end. So you have this idea of the recipient, the space, or the platform, and then the instruments like a glass, like a bowl. And then the head, obviously, is a container, and the house is a container, but it's also a platform. The drawing, the surface, the paper. So all that combination of the body as playing with these containers and in the platforms,
right,
and reproducing somehow the motion of the universe in the constant expansion and motion, and how that's what I found fascinating. All these Indian maps,
right,
and all the representation.
And I think the connection between them is very rich.
So
and deep. And I thought I would read just one paragraph. I was thinking about all this, and I'm in the middle of writing my next book. But I pulled out this paragraph actually today after our conversation 3 days ago. And I think it's relevant to sort of bringing to close the idea that in your work forever, for the longest time, there's always this idea of landing in a place and figuring out how something can simultaneously be an instrument, an abstraction, how it can become a pensieve, to use Harry Potter's words, but also open a door into observation, visual observation, mental observation. This is from my book, but I think it's relevant. The quarrels between those who build models and abstractions and those who believe that such abstractions are false has gone on for so long and with such bitterness that, like an old sour battle between a bickering couple, the words themselves have begun to slip in their meaning. Critics of scientific abstraction, this is what I work on, accuse model builders of the ultimate sin of reduction, the oversimplification of complex phenomena into simple causes and effects. The gene, for instance, is a quintessential icon of this reduction. This is biology reduced in all its grand complexity to pieces of information that are encoded in DNA. And because reduction ultimately involves the diminishment of complexity, it is also somehow equated to the diminishment of wonder and beauty of living systems. But this is a culturally constructed notion and a slippage of meaning. There is no inherent reason that the diminishment of the complexity of organismal biology should make an organism any less beautiful or any less wonderful. Only a fool, encountering Newton's laws of gravitation, would find the cosmos somehow diminished. The real power of abstraction, when it works, is that it represents a profound act of creativity. It does not arrive from reduction or elimination, but from building an idea from the ground up, like an architectural object, often from first principles. In doing so, it dispenses of all the irrelevances and of nonsense, of the noise and flurry of the world. The opposite of abstraction is not the concrete or the real. The opposite of abstraction is distraction.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.